Hi everyone, how you doing? My name is Matt Boyce and welcome to the Arena with Matt Boyce. So this market's a battle. I want to bring on people that are going to help you fight and win that battle. Today I couldn't be more excited. I'm bringing on someone that I've known for years. I've really watched him grow in this business and become a resource for so many people. Tom Wenger. Tom Wenger, welcome to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Tom's with the TCS Group, and the reason I wanted to bring Tom on is because if you've been watching the show, you know that I'm not a big fan of reading articles about real estate. I'm not a fan of experts out in the media telling me what's happening in my market. I'm a big fan of boots on the ground. So Tom not only works in the New Jersey area, in that region, he works in Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. So really unique perspective. Really was interested in picking your brain because so many people right now, they just want to know what's going on. So what's going on, Tom? What's going on with the markets? I guess if you can give me an overview of New Jersey and Philadelphia, what are the biggest differences you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so right now, obviously, we're in this shift, and I think it kind of shifted to people wanting to be more in the suburbs, in New Jersey, Bucks County of Philadelphia, and I think that all started with COVID. So if we go back to 2020, I think there was just more of this feel of, hey, I want a bigger house, I want a yard, need more space. Hey, if I'm going to be in the city, is the value there if I can't capitalize on the restaurants being closed, everything shut down? So it kind of pushed everyone out. So we kind of seen where it was more of a focus on the bigger single family. So I think that's where New Jersey and the surrounding suburbs kind of picked up. And not to say that Philadelphia wasn't good. So if we go back to 2020, I think from then till now, Philadelphia is probably up 25%.
Oh, wow.
But then the surrounding suburbs, New Jersey, it's up 50%. So, hey, if you bought something in Camden County, Burlington County for, let's say, $250, it's now up $100,000. So I think there was just that big push. Then, hey, what are some other reasons? The political climate, there's some uncertainty there. Crime is a little bit on the rise. But with anything in real estate, it's cyclical. So I'm sure it'll come back around once we kind of come out of this post-pandemic and people want to go back into the city. So I think it'll come back around.
So you're seeing people at this point, things have calmed down a little bit. The initial knee-jerk reaction of the pandemic, and I know people are working remote, and now maybe that's not happening as much. So now that the dust is settling, are you seeing more people coming out of the city into the suburbs, or now are you seeing a little bit more people moving back into the city?
No, I still think there's that push out. And like I said, I just think there's still a lot of uncertainty in the city. So until that kind of gets grounded, I think people want to kind of move away. And really, I guess it comes down to personal, not preference, but where you're at. Hey, if you're a young professional, what could be better than living in the city? But then if you're trying to start the family, hey, you want to transition into maybe that forever home. So I think part of where I'm at in my business, maybe that's where I'm feeling it more of the push to New Jersey because, hey, if I started 10 years ago and just being licensed in Philadelphia, a lot of my buyers were buying in the city, young professionals. Now they're ready to transition to that forever home. Schools are more important, communities more important, a cul-de-sac, things like that. So I think that's what's pushing them away where it's like, hey, let me sell my starter home and then move to that forever home. So I think that's part of the transition.
You know, what a great point. The biggest complaint that I've heard personally from my real estate agents and all the buyers that we work with would be that these buyers, these first-time home buyers especially, they have no shot. There's no good deals out there to be had. They missed the boat. You know, all these things. So if you're a first-time home buyer and they come to you and they're saying, okay, well, what opportunities are there for me right now? I mean, what would you say? Are you seeing now things are opening up a little bit more for them so they could do the same thing, maybe buy that starter home, make a little money on equity, and then transition when they eventually want to start a family?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if there's no bad time to buy. So even now you buy it, you live there for a few years, you're not paying rent. then you transition into that. You have that equity to then purchase. So yeah, no, I'm definitely seeing as the market shifts, there's definitely more opportunities for buyers because, hey, if we go back 6 months ago, a year ago, it was not fair for any buyer, let alone a first-time home buyer, because it was just, hey, what am I doing wrong as a buyer? Well, nothing. You're this down, you're waiving inspections, you're doing everything you can, but then it's beyond your control. So now I think buyers are coming back in and they have a little bit more control on, they can, there's not as many bidding wars. They have the ability to kind of choose what they want now.
Yeah, so something that Tom and I were speaking about was the fact that things are opening up where sellers they're motivated to sell. Before Tom was saying how they would be on the market for a day and then there multiple offers, dozen offers, 20, 30 grand, 50 grand over. And so if you're a first-time home buyer, you're caught up. Maybe you have just enough for that down payment. Maybe you have just enough for some closing costs, but then God forbid there's repairs that need to be made. There's something that's happening where now that's overextending you and you don't have the money for it. So something that we had discussed was the fact that with rates a little higher right now, there's some opportunity, right, with sellers being motivated. So are you seeing more ability for you to negotiate, maybe the seller to buy down the rate for the buyers? Are they paying for some closing costs? Are they paying for repairs?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I mean, a year ago you weren't even able to do or request the ability to do an inspection. Now we're doing inspections, and yes, sellers are more open to doing repairs or giving those credits. And yeah, to your point, a great option for any buyer is to request that $5,000 seller concession or something like that where you can buy down the rate. And I think where we're at in the market, if you're going to kind of go off of appraisals, the appraisals are still high because, hey, they have to look 6 months ago at the higher values. So we're in that perfect climate where seller concessions are working because the appraisal value's there, but not the demand value.
So everyone, just stop if you're watching this. What he said was just so amazing and so important. I think it's not understood really what's happening. When the pandemic first hit and values started rise, or not values, but people started overbidding on properties and the market started heating up, Tom was just saying they look 6 months back, an appraiser that's coming to value the property that you're trying to buy. So if there's no comparable properties that have sold that high, you as a buyer are paying more. You're paying out of pocket because that property's not going to appraise for what you went under contract for. So what he's saying right now is there's now so many properties that have sold so high in the recent 6 months or so. If you go in there and you negotiate the seller to pay for closing costs, or you negotiate whatever the purchase price is and take a little bit of that and buy down the rate or pay for repairs, the comparable properties are there for the value now. So if you're going under contract, it's going to appraise, which means less out of money or less out of pocket for you, and you could save some money.
Yeah, no, exactly what you're saying. And the difference is, and that's always been the catch with these seller concessions, is it has to meet that appraisal value. And then it then takes off the net to the seller. So that's where it needs those higher appraisal values. So yeah, we're in that perfect climate for that, for sure.
I love it. Well, definitely some opportunities. And Tom, the reason I wanted to bring you on today is because a lot of people look to you as a resource. And I followed you. I'm a big fan of consistency. Anything you can do consistent will create dependability, and I think a lot of people depend on you. One of the things I thought was pretty cool is you do Wednesdays with Wenger. So, which of course is perfect, right? So Wednesdays with Wenger, I'm guessing I know why you chose Wednesdays, because it went well with the name. But give me an idea, what is it? Why did you start doing it? Why do you continue? And what kind of feedback have you gotten?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. I started doing Wednesday with Wenger, and it's crazy when I look back on it today as I was kind of preparing to be on here and just thinking of different things on where my business was. I started that August of 2018. So I kind of look back and I started it to just be that resource. Hey, how can I communicate information to my buyers and sellers on what's going on in the market? What tips can I provide? Because really I take it very serious when someone's trusting me. Let's face it, this is potentially someone's biggest purchase. It's their family home that's been in their family for 30 years. So I take it very serious that someone's trusting me to be that resource. So I hope, or my mission of these videos is just to kind of let people know or showcase that I am knowledgeable in the market, in the business, and also that I'm passionate. Like, hey, I care that you're knowledgeable. You know what I mean? And I think that's where, in doing this, the more knowledgeable you are as a client or a consumer, a buyer or seller, the more comfortable you're going to be. So I hope that these little videos just give people a glimpse on, hey, if you're working with Tom, you're working with TCS, you have that comfort that someone, I mean, we are knowledgeable and we care for about you and what you're going to get out of this deal.
Yeah, and that's been so big because so many people in this market, you mentioned it's shifting, right? So when it shifts, I know a lot of people that don't do this every day, or maybe they're just getting in the market. They need to buy. They're living with their parents. They're like, I can't do it anymore. But then again, I don't want to. I want to buy, but I don't want to wait, or I don't want to pay too much, and I don't know what's happening. Or maybe, like you said, you've been living in the same house for 30 years. Now's the time to sell. What do? What do you list it at? There's some houses that you would think would sell right away that have been sitting for months. Yeah. And then when I ask you and I ask real estate agents that I know that know what they're doing, they say they priced it way too high. By pricing it too high, it's a detriment to the seller. It's counterintuitive, right? So explain to me that if I'm looking to list my house and I've watched this market go nuts, right? Sellers are getting anything they want. And I think it's really big for sellers to know, well, where do we stand right now? If I want to sell my house, what's the strategy?
Yeah, I mean, there's noise and news, you know what I mean? So kind of what you listen to and what you hear, like, hey, the world's not ending. So I feel like kind of we need to be, as agents, as mortgage lenders, as people in this business, kind of just the resource that, hey, what's really going on? So then when we talk about, okay, well, how do I price my home now to sell? We touched on it. Well, you can potentially pay down some of the buyer's closing costs. You price it right. So I kind of go.
So you advertise that in the.
Yeah, for sure. You would advertise that in the listing, and it's just more of what sort of. I'm trying to think of the right way to kind of explain this, where it's just what value can we bring as a seller? If every house is offering the same thing, how do we differentiate ourselves? And price is a big thing. So there's two things that control a listing or control it from selling. It's condition and price, but condition can be improved with the price. So it's all about pricing it the right way. So I think that's just the focus and when you go into it.
Well, yeah, and it's a shame because then you see, we've talked about how certain properties that have been sitting a while, a buyer coming in, seeing that, they're assuming that nobody else wants your house. So then they're gonna undercut you, and you're not gonna ultimately get what you want. And the longer it sits, the probably less negotiating power you have as a seller.
Yeah, and the best way that I explain it to sellers is, well, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear or what you need to hear? That's why you hire me, to tell you what you need to hear. And then it's just focusing on like just getting it out there and marketing it properly.
Well, yeah, and that's why if you're a seller, you're watching this, specifically sellers, I wanted to recap that real quick and touch on it because it's it was so easy for you for so long, and now it's getting a little bit more difficult. So someone like Tom would be able to walk you through all that. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to go over some predictions and then some advice that Tom's giving his clients right now. Be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Aloha, Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
A stroke can be easy to detect. A loved one can't speak, perhaps they can't move. But there's another sign of a stroke that many of us can't see. It's called spatial neglect, and it can occur during or after a stroke, causing distorted visual movements. Fortunately, there's a solution by using optical prism technology during rehabilitation. If you or a loved one have experienced a stroke, ask your doctor about spatial neglect. Spatial neglect. See the whole picture at KesslerFoundation.org.
Welcome back to the arena with Matt Boyce. I'm Matt Boyce, and I wanted to bring in Tom Wenger today. Tom's with TCS Group because, again, this market's a battle. I think there's no doubt about that, and I want to bring on people that are going to help you fight and win that battle. So Tom and I were talking about all things going on right now. His what's happening right now in the markets. Tom's very unique in that he not only works in the New Jersey market, but also Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. He's all over the place. He's the boots on the ground. So he's someone that I wanted to come on here and give some advice and a breakdown of what's happening. So Tom, right now, you had mentioned the shift. You had mentioned the fact that this market's changing right before our eyes. And a lot of people, I think, whenever there's change, they tend to kind of take a step back, right? There's fear. Of course, the media, this is how they make money. They prey on us and they say how terrible everything is. And when things are good, great. But when things are bad, they make it even worse. So what do you tell clients right now that are hesitant in getting in the market, not thinking there's any deals out there for them, not thinking that this is going to be a good investment for them? What advice are you giving right now to people that are asking you what they should do?
What's the old saying? Like the worst time to buy a house is later. There's never.
I like that.
There's never going to be the perfect time in the market, because what happens to all those people? Oh, well, I'm going to wait until the market slows down. Well, then rates went up. Well, I'm going to wait till rates go down, then the prices are going to go. There's always going to be something. When you focus on controlling what you can control, that's when you win as a buyer or seller in any market. So, if you focus on as a buyer, all right, what can I afford monthly? And don't go over that, then you're protected. Don't worry about, if you overpay for something or you're counting other people's money when you're not controlling what you can control. So if you focus on, I can afford this monthly, I stay in that zone, you'll really be able to kind of navigate or ride any sort of market fluctuation, rate changes. You're focusing on what you can control. So that's my best piece of advice. And then I would kind of say, like, an example that I usually give buyers is, all right, well, imagine, and let me back it up in the sense of like, if I was a buyer and I'm going to sell in a year or so, like, I'm just buying, it's an investment. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the market where maybe right now that's not the best time to buy. Let's pause on that until the market kind of settles. But if you're trying to buy your foreseeable future home, your forever home, time's going to cure everything. So I give this example of that everyone can kind of relate to. Take the house that you grew up in as a kid. So if I'll use myself as an example. My parents bought my house or their house for $40,000. They now we live there. they sold it for 200 and some thousand, and it turned into be like it's a less than desirable area now, but it's still sold for 200,000. Imagine if they went back and said, oh, well, the market was a little off then. Rates were 5.5, not 5.2, and I backed out. Or if they said, oh, well, if I should have paid 45. Well, they still made that 200,000. It's still
in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter.
Exactly. And when you look at real estate as what it is, it's an asset and it's a long-term investment. So if you approach it in that sense, you'll almost always never get hurt.
Right now, you can't even buy a Tesla for $40,000, but
but
that was a great example. Yeah. So something that Tom and I were discussing is the fact that appreciation. I think that's the biggest word in people's minds, because probably if you're getting in the real estate, you're thinking of selling or buying, you probably got into it pretty recently over the past couple of years, most of the time. And then before that, you didn't even think about it. You saw some headlines, but you didn't really do a deep dive. And I think that one of the things that people are worried about is appreciation. But Tom and I were just discussing how appreciation depends on supply and demand. And even though supply is easing up, demand is easing up, there's still a big discrepancy here where we don't have enough supply. Supply is still low. Even though demand's dropped a little bit, supply is still low. Whenever you have less than 6 months of inventory, that typically leads to a seller's market, and that leads to values rising. Now, we've seen prices have appreciated, 20%, right? It year over year since the pandemic.
And as I said, in doing research, I mean, since 2020, I mean, values are up 50%. So imagine in 2.5 years, values are up $100,000 on a $200,000 purchase. So yeah, it's simple economics. It is. It's all about supply and demand.
And even if it goes, instead of 20%, it goes to 5%, and you buy a $400,000 home, that means next year you just gained $20,000 in equity. So that's the other big question would be, are you seeing houses depreciate, or are you just seeing housing appreciation slowing? Big difference, depreciation, or are you seeing it slow?
I think it's slowing. You know what I mean? Because those houses that are priced right, they are still getting multiple offers. They still are selling. It's when you come out of the gate priced high. And I think I think a new floor was established. I don't know that we'll ever see in certain neighborhoods a house under $300,000 ever again. Right. Now, are they going to sell for $400,000 in the next year? No, but they might drop back down to $325,000. 350, but they'll never go back under 300. And I think that's what these market shifts is it sets new floors and new ceilings. And I think that's what kind of happened here. Whereas it shifted, it'll never go under a certain dollar amount depending on where you're at.
Well, I want to ask you, so let's take a second. We've gone over a lot and talked about the shift and talked about, if I'm a new buyer, seller, what do we do? And there's a lot of unpredictability out there. But I'm going to make a prediction. So if you could predict what's going to happen in the immediate and long-term future, seeing what you're seeing every day and all the trends that you personally are seeing, not just reading in the news, but you are personally seeing, what are you predicting? And I'm going to hold you to it. We'll be on here a year from now.
Okay.
What are you predicting in the next, again, few months to maybe a few years?
I guess the best word I can use, if I have to zone it into one word, would just be balance. I think we're going to have a more balanced market.
I like that.
Where it's going to kind of be even keel for everyone. So again, priced right, you're going to sell. And then as buyers, you're going to have options to kind of pick, but those stronger buyers who have the better credit and all that are going to get the better rates. Because I think what happened, obviously we had the uncertainty of the pandemic. Then we have the uncertainty in, hey, rates went up so quick, so violently, where it was like, hey, let's catch our breath. So I think, hey, as rates kind of set in where they're going to be, if they're going to be in that 5 to 6, people can accept that as long as they know that's what's coming. It was just, there was so much uncertainty. So I think we're going to be heading towards that balance where it's a healthy, balanced market.
And so perfect segue into my prediction. So if you know, I own a mortgage company, and this is what I do every day. I look at rates, I look at the markets. And so forgetting about the day-to-day, my prediction is going to be that we're going to see rates come down when inflation starts coming down. So the Fed right now is raising rates, which they're not raising mortgage rates. They're raising the Fed funds rate, which is that's what banks borrow against. But the more they raise that, the more they're trying to control inflation. So when that comes back down, rates will follow. So I don't know if it's going to be in 6 months, a year and a half, but I think in the short term, we're going to see rates come back down. And then you know what's going to happen, to Tom's point? We're going to start seeing more buyers getting back in the market. Oh, rates are back down into the low 5s, high 4s. Oh my God, now I got to get in there again. Oh, it's affordable again. Now, what just happened to you? If you did get in the market and you bought with Tom and you're in the house and you got in with limited people bidding against you, you got a good deal, maybe you got some closing costs paid for, you got your rate bought down a little bit, now your house is going to appreciate faster. If you didn't get in the market, and now you've been on the sidelines, you're going to be part of the crowd again. And now maybe you don't have the ability of getting that deal, and you're going to be competing against more and more people. So there's no wrong or right way of doing this. If it's good time for you and you're financially able to do it, I would say, and Tom and I talk about it all the time, just get started. Just take action. Tom and I had a great experience with a buyer who was indecisive, all these questions, right? And how many times do you see this where they look at you, they go, I don't know what I can afford, I don't know what's happening, what should I buy, should I not? First step, know your numbers. Yep. So he referred them over to my team, we ran numbers for them, they now knew what their maximum amount they qualified for, they knew what their payment would be, they knew based on that payment goal, what they could really afford, and then now they can have a real conversation with Tom and then do a buyer's consultation. And guess what? They ended up getting an amazing house. They're very happy with the payment. Tom was able to negotiate for them, and they're sitting in there. And to Tom's point, the house is now appreciating. It's probably been several months now, but now the house is appreciated. They're happy. Everyone's happy. So, guys, if you want to get in touch with Tom to have that consultation, to take that step, take some action, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my cell phone, 215-805-8076, and then twenger@kw.com.
Tom really likes text late at night, preferably after midnight. And so, no, you can get in touch with him anytime. And he's probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met in real estate. I know that he truly cares, about his family and your family. That's why I wanted to have him on today. Tom, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And until next week, guys, you have a great week. And again, if you want to contact Tom, please email, text him, or message the show anytime, and we can answer any questions. Have a great one.
Thanks, Matt.